Why he's doing it is to win votes. I mean, he has massively cut infrastructure spending over the last 5 years, and he's worked out if you give a couple of billion quid here or there, then you can get pretty good headlines, even if on further inspection it turns out to be nowhere near as generous as you did. And we've seen with this incredible sort of battle for the credit today, with Lib Dems and the Tories wrestling each other to say that they were the ones doing the new roads. But when we get to the autumn statements on Wednesday, we're going to find not very much in the way of economic progress. We're going to find the debt.
Do you think this is affordable, Anne Pettifer? We've already had the promise of tax cuts as well from David Cameron.
Of course it's affordable. Our public debt, our government's public debt, is really not a problem. And, you know, I'm not a great fan of George Osborne's economic strategy, but the fact is that if we didn't have a deficit of 5.6%, we'd be in the position the Eurozone is in. And the fact that we're doing better than they are is precisely because he changed gear in 2012, reversed his policies, and began to spend. Now, in economics, everybody's spending, public and private, is somebody else's income. When you cut that spending, which is what he's threatening to do in the next term, you cut people's incomes. And the cuts in spending that occurred post-2010 have led inevitably to falls in income, which hurts the Chancellor because it leads to falls in tax revenue.
So are you saying the deficit running up the amount we're borrowing isn't a problem?
It's not a problem at all. I mean, it's not a problem because our private sector is in such deep trouble that it's not spending enough, it's not investing. Companies are hoarding cash, they're sitting on it, hoarding it, because they're nervous, because they mean for whatever reason. And in those circumstances, if government claws back as well, we will just plummet into this condition that Greece is in. Fortunately, we're not.
Do you think deficit's a problem?
Of course it's a problem. It's a problem that governments around the world are trying to grapple with. George Osborne has tried to get the deficit down. It's not going very well. Originally, he told us he'd have to be borrowing 20 billion more than he's spending this year, and now, as we've just seen, it's closer to 90 billion. It's a massive problem, and one that this government...
Why does it matter if we need the investment in the economy?
Well, because this money has got to be paid back by somebody. I mean, what you're saying about spending being everybody's income, well, debt is everybody's debt as well. And right now, the households, I mean, mainly children in those households, are going to be paying back these debts. We are knowingly saddling the next generation with tens of billions of pounds of debt. And this is not just an economic failure, it's a moral failure.
It's not really. I mean, the point is that the government's debt is not like yours or my debt. The government has something that you and I don't have.
Who pays back the government's debt?
It's called the central bank. And the central bank, the Bank of England, lends to the government now at virtually negative rates of interest, basically, very low rates of interest. We've seen over the period of this government that the interest bill has scarcely risen, and that's because interest rates are so low. So we're not going to put this burden onto future generations because the interest on it is going to be so low, and the income it will generate will pay for itself.
What about roads in particular? Are they, in your view, a deserving cause?
Well, yes, they are more deserving than HS2, where the government has decided to put its money not in the road network, but in the high-speed rail network. It's as nothing, the road investment we've seen today, compared to this shiny new railway which is going to be built, which I regard to be a huge waste of money. We should have been spending a lot more on infrastructure, not just now, but also in the, in the Labour years. That was the real chance to build the infrastructure, and instead it wasn't taken.
I don't know, the trouble with the roads is that actually we're facing a huge challenge, which people in Lima are talking about as we speak, which is climate change. We're going to have to adapt dramatically. We're going to have to adapt our cities to a new world. We need bicycle lanes, for example, and government needs...
Getting to Somerset, though, will it?
No, well, the point is we have to just get over this idea.
But fewer traffic jams is good for the environment, isn't it?
It may well be, but you know, there are much bigger challenges facing us. In fact, climate change is a challenge unprecedented. I mean, Churchill, before the war, warned the Tory party of the threat of Nazism, and they were ignored. And, you know, we need a Churchill to come forward again today and say that actually this threat is greater and the investment needed for it is greater. And instead we're fiddling around fixing roads. You know, we have Somerset threatened with flooding. We're going to have droughts. We're going to have an agricultural sector that's going to be damaged by all this. We've got to prepare for that. And the government has to invest to help the nation prepare, as we had to prepare for the war.